Why are you depressed? Why is anybody depressed? The answer is actually quite simple, yet science and modern medicine, big pharma, overlooks this aspect of treating depression because they're preoccupied with basically numbing the symptoms rather than addressing the actual real, true root cause. Now, I come from a place, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a certified therapist, psychologist. I'm somebody who personally has experienced depression. I've studied it intensely in search of answers and understanding. I have been on antidepressants for periods of my life, and I come to the same conclusion. This hasn't helped me fight depression. All it's done is numbed, hidden the root cause by treating the symptoms, but I'm still experiencing depression because I haven't addressed the true origin of what causes depression. And I'm going to share that with you. But before I get to that simple answer, I'm going to break it down into multiple steps to help you understand so that you can treat yourself along this journey and bring this one element into your life to treat depression. Now, when I talk about big pharma and how they treat the symptoms, but cause and effect, they treat the symptoms. If I lack courage and I drink alcohol, I gain courage, seemingly. Alcohol doesn't give me courage. It numbs my fear, but I'm still lacking courage. And basically, that's what antidepressants do. That's what most medicines do. They actually never heal the ailment. Not to mention, when it comes to antidepressants, the side effects are sometimes worse than the initial ailment. A medication that has suicide as a side effect, for me, is a big question mark. And in taking antidepressants during one of my really intense bouts of depression, it drove me to the point of wanting to take my life. In fact, I actually attempted to do that very thing. And that's when I dug deep to find an answer. And here's my conclusion. But again, I'm going to break it down so that you have the tools to move forward and start battling, or rather succeeding in addressing your depression. So let's begin by looking at who tends to experience depression. There are four main categories of people who experience depression. The first one is somebody who has experienced child abuse. The brain doesn't develop in the same way. There are such heightened levels of trauma that for the rest of its life, that child is fighting a sense of shame, guilt, low self-esteem, which inspires, triggers, stimulates depression. So that's child abuse, number one. Number two, and by the way, all of these four categories come under the umbrella of neurodivergence. So we've got child abuse over here. Then you've got the creative. Oftentimes, creatives connect to the other aspects of who gets depressed. But the highly creative oftentimes experiences depression. Look at the great artist, the Robin Williams. But you'll understand when I connect the other dots with the other four elements. Child abuse, the creatives, HSPs, highly sensitive people, including empaths. And then you've got those who are highly intelligent. Neurodivergence, that also includes potentially people with ADHD and other challenges, emotional challenges. The way they process life is different. And so those four main pillars are the typical, stereotypical type of person who will experience depression. And why do those neurodivergents experience depression? One, they are misunderstood. They lack a sense of belonging in society because they understand and perceive life differently. They oftentimes do not find love because they're different. They oftentimes lack a level of relatability. If you're highly intelligent, there's nobody around you that understands what the hell you're talking about. this leads to a level of isolation and loneliness. And that's the same for the HSP. The highly sensitive person is overwhelmed with emotions that people can't grasp. What is wrong with you? It's very isolating. What those four categories will do, the highly intelligent person may be inspired or obliged to dumb it down. So now they're not living authentically. They're having to dumb it down. The empath observes and notices so much in life and understands people and feels people that sometimes they have to tone it back, because when they reveal what they see, people think they're crazy. So what do? We tend to keep to ourselves. Isolation, loneliness. And if you put all of those elements together, you're faking, you're pretending, you're trying to blend in, you feel lonely, you feel isolated, you feel misunderstood, you don't relate to people, people don't relate to you. It is exhausting, let alone lonely. It is exhausting to navigate this world without a level of community where people understand what you're going through. You can exchange ideas, you can lean on people, you can get support. It is exhausting. It is emotionally exhausting. It is spiritually exhausting, and that leads to physical exhaustion. So you've got a level of emotional deprivation, spiritual deprivation. And when I say spiritual, I'm not limiting it to religion. I'm limiting it to your spirit, your soul. It lacks, and I'm going to get to the one big foundation, the big idea as to why people get depressed. You put all of these things together that I've just shared. What does it lead to? The common factor that brings all these elements together, and this is what you're lacking: connection. You are lacking connection, a fundamental human need. And when that need is not met, it has highly detrimental effects to your psyche. Lack of connection. And modern medicine, in order to generate revenue, because you can't measure connection, you can't scientifically prove that connection is the root cause. It's much easier to come up with some medication and label it to a lack of serotonin. So what do? They create a medication to stimulate a hormone, serotonin, that masks the symptoms. But now let's break it down, because they say that antidepressants stimulate serotonin. Here's where I'm going to challenge that fact. Again, I've gone through it, I've taken antidepressants, and I understand connection. My moments in the world when I didn't feel depressed is when I felt connected. As an artist, as a performer, I look at people like Robin Williams. When they are on stage, they feel joy, they feel safe, they feel confident, because during that moment, they are connecting with. There is a level of connection. If it's a live audience, you are connecting with your audience. It feels the applause, the recognition, the acknowledgement feels like love. It's a reciprocation of affection. It's an emotional fuel that you have been deprived of, and it feels really good. It's a high. So in those moments of connection on a stage as a creative, as an artist, you feel the high and you feel happy. And then, like any drug, when it's removed, there's the down, there's the low. And so you're continually looking for the high, and we find it in the wrong ways because we look for immediate gratification, dopamine. And what we're looking for is long-term gratification, long-term acceptance, long-term validation. And that comes through connection, community, relatability, being understood, being seen, heard, respected, honored, loved, cared for, nurtured, protected. So again, when all those things are lacking, connection, the soul becomes alone, restless, exhausted, fighting, continually fighting, searching, looking for. You are exhausted because you lack connection. Going back to the serotonin aspect, you've got such a imbalance of emotional connection of emotional validation in your system, of self-esteem, your body might be producing serotonin, but that level of serotonin is simply not enough to counterbalance all the other deficits. And so maybe the antidepressant gives you a serotonin boost, but it hasn't actually addressed the issue. So you're masking the actual real issue. And again, Big Pharma has not solved the problem of depression because they're looking at it from the wrong angle. And I'm going to reiterate this because I'm not a medical doctor. I've now not been on antidepressants for about 8 years. And I've found other ways to fulfill the thing that antidepressants allegedly gave me. And I've recognized the patterns that when I feel a level of connection, by the way, I'm going to add purpose. When I feel a level of connection and purpose, I find a level of happiness and joy. And connection can be also to nature, to my dogs. But when I feel a sense of connection, I live with a level of joy. It can be romantic. It can be with your siblings. But you've got to start designing a life where you feel connected to something, somebody. The more people you feel connected with, the smaller the odds of experiencing any form of depression. So you've got to go out there and start designing a life that promotes some level of connection. If you are a loner, as many depressed people are, this is kind of the irony, the catch-22. If you're a loner, you've got to take that step and push yourself out of your comfort zone to seek connection. Because here's the thing about introverts and loners. It's not that we want to necessarily live in isolation. We're just trying to minimize the additional stress, the BS of life, the hypocrisy of humanity, the greed, all those type of things are overwhelming. So we minimize our interaction with humans because that's just adds to the overload. But you've got to take the effort, make the effort to find your tribe, those that relate to your core values, that understand you, that can see you. If you're highly intelligent, well, then you've got to have a circle of friends who are also highly intelligent, that know what the hell you are talking about, that perceive some of the concepts you're talking about. If you're highly sensitive, surround yourself with highly sensitive people that understand the emotional overwhelm, relatability, connection. And if you can find connection in your life, you will find that your depression will fade. And I don't want to tell you to get off antidepressants. If it works for you, stay calm and carry on. That's not what I'm here to do. I'm offering another alternative to address your issue. Maybe you're going to do both. And maybe at some point when you do find connection, you'll realize, oh, I need this a little bit less. Maybe you'll continue your life doing both. But at least entertain a new way of approaching your life by designing a level of connection, purpose, relatability, love, camaraderie, trust, safety, confidence in your relationships. And you will find you will become a lot happier.